Did we finally find it? Is this the best grinder that money can buy? Let's take a look and find out. All right, so this grinder has 80 millimeter burrs, and they are magnetically attached. You'll notice that there are no screw holes on these burrs. They just slot right in with the magnet system and these pegs on the back. That way that they can be a bit cleaner, theoretically, and have, I guess, a more even particle distribution or less retention. All those things blended into one. It's nice to have these blind burrs. So there are actually two sets of burrs that I tested for this grinder. There are three available. Let's explain. The first set is from the version 1 of this grinder, which was the burr set that shipped whenever this grinder first came out in late 2015. Several years down the road, a revision was added and two new burr sets entered the fray. These, which are considered the default or the core burrs, which are really marketed as an all-rounder, and there's a separate dedicated burr set called the Ultra burrs that are a low fine set that are aimed really for pour overs. Now, those burrs are in here. So I've got two people to thank for this. First of all, to the burrs inside, a big shout out to Nick in Philadelphia. Thank you so much for being so kind to reach out, send me the unopened, unused set of the Ultra burrs. Awesome job. Thank you very much. And of course, an even crazier big shout out, please thank him in the comments down below, to Lee in Connecticut for reaching out and shipping me his EG-1 V2. Thank you so much, Lee. It's been a pleasure to have in my home in the last 2 months, and I hope that the insight that I can provide in this video and the experiences I can share with you all in the world can, help make or break your decision in terms of whether you're going to buy this, take a look at a different grinder, or just keep the conversation moving forward. Now, about the conversation moving forward, there's not much talk, at least in North American coffee circles, about this grinder. And I think it comes down to when this grinder came out, what the targeted purpose was for, and really the kind of state of where things are in 2021. So all of the grinders that I've tested so far, most of them didn't really exist or have a really big proliferation, except maybe of course, the EK that I tested back in 2020. Whenever this was announced in December of 2015, most of those things didn't exist. The big flat monoliths weren't really a thing yet. The Versalab, it was still kind of in its, let's just call it its fallow period before the M4 revision came out. And the niche didn't exist, the Ode didn't exist, the Forte BG was around, and this was a hot new thing to have on your counter. Now, I want to be upfront. I wrote this thing off when it came out. Why? Because it was more expensive than an EK. The burrs were smaller, and it didn't actually solve the size problem to me in a meaningful way. Whenever the EK came out, everyone wanted the EK43 Barista that Mal Koenig cruelly teased the world with. If you search for images of it, some people still have these limited edition units of what really is an EK43S, just with some crappier legs and a number on it. But this is smaller than an EK, but it's not so much smaller that I think that I should be paying a premium on top of the already expensive bag grinder that you would have had on your counter. Now, for context there, remember, I'm the person that put up with a bag grinder on their counter for 3 years. So please consider that whenever you're evaluating my sense of what I'm willing to put up with. Now, the espresso that comes from this grinder with the core burrs, I actually think is really good. It is intensely sweet, clear, thick. You've got all of these things that most people want in an espresso, and you're gonna get a pretty good one out of this every single time, just with the stock burrs. Also, the drip coffee is very good. It's very enjoyable. I would say that it would be acceptable to most people, and I could get away with dealing with this every day with these burrs as both for both my drip and espresso. But again, I get to choose, and I'm not going to choose so. I think a choice that if you're going to consider this, that's very much worth your time, is taking the plunge and getting the ultra low fine filter burrs. That is what I think the true magic of this grinder is. Those burrs produce some of the clearest, sweetest, best dynamic range of flavor cups that I've tested in filter coffee in all of the years I've tasted grinders. I think that if right now you asked me, what is the best filter coffee only grinder that I can buy right now? I've got my credit card ready to go. Order the EG-1 with the Ultra burrs, whether that's in this regular, I guess you could call it the standard coloration, and you just add on the burrs, or you buy the quote Onyx version, which is blacked out and automatically comes with them. I typically try to stay away from conversations about value, but with this, it is simply impossible because it is the most expensive grinder I've ever had here. It's the most expensive piece of coffee equipment I've ever had in my home for any amount of time. In fact, this is the most expensive thing in my possession outside of my car, and I think that if we were to sell both of them, this would probably get me more money. With that framing, the question for me becomes this: why would I spend that much money for a dual purpose grinder and not go for the best? So what makes a good coffee grinder? For a lot of people, not me, they want the one grinder to rule them all. They want one thing that does everything for them. And I understand the sentiment and very much have fallen into that same thinking process, I'll politely call it, in the past. This mentality that you should be using the same grinder for everything, while it makes sense on a gut level, you think, why can't it just work? The things that most people want in a espresso, and by espresso, all you nerds out there, I mean the thing that most people think about. I don't mean any funky pressure profiling, flow profiling, long elonges that you're pulling. Forget that. That's not what I'm talking about. Whenever most people think of espresso, they need a different grinder to make it work. It's just a simple reality that you want to have a different texture than drip coffee. You want a different mixture of the particles in your beverage to give it a different sense of flavor. That's why you get different grinders. So to me, the idea of an all-in-one grinder, it's just not something that I really believe. It's like, it's marketing to me, or it's wishful thinking. A common thing I hear is people say, hey, I've got XYZ grinder. Is it gonna be great for drip? And I'll read their description of it, or they'll send troubleshooting notes and they'll say, hey, it's like really bitter and astringent and weird and hollow. And I'll go, that's right, because it is designed to be making a beverage that is really, really concentrated, pulled really, really fast, not diluted, and being able to show the range of intentional inaccuracies, if you wanted to call it. So I don't like the idea of dual purpose grinders. I just don't. Now, if you've watched this channel before, you've noticed that I tested a grinder that I did like, that it was a quote dual use grinder. It was the Ditting Lab Suite. Now, I think that the EG-1 is the second entry into that log of dual use grinders that are very good. Whether that's going to be a big thing for you or not is up to you. To me, it doesn't mean anything because we're still leaving things on the table by choosing to not maximize the direction we're looking in. But I think it does an admirable job with the core burrs that come with the unit, and it should be worth your consideration. I'm not your money. I am not you. You have to make the choice, but I'm telling you, I would not buy it for the core burrs. All right, I want to give a massive shout out to my Patreon supporters. That's right, I've got a Patreon. Had a couple people be very proactive, find it hidden in the links in my About page. I don't really advertise it, but hey, this is a great time to both thank them and let you know that you can support me on Patreon at a couple different price points that you can choose from. So, want to thank Chris S. from Ohio, Nicholas from New York, Sam from Pittsburgh, Todd P, Silas S. All of you, very big thank you. Your support is incredibly valued, and I hope to be able to continue to produce some more content for you soon. Thank you.